Get off my property. Now. Make me. The woman standing at the edge of my grass, deep red blazer over a black crop top and pencil skirt, white heels already sinking into my morning damp lawn, smiled like a cobra about to strike. This is the third time this week, Vanessa. My coffee mug trembled in my hand, rage barely contained. I've asked nicely, I've sent letters, I've posted signs. What part of private property don't you understand? Private? She laughed, sharp and cold. Mr. Caldwell, everything in Riverside Estates falls under HOA jurisdiction, including this. She gestured at my lawn with her clipboard like a queen dismissing a peasant. The easement map clearly shows. That map is fabricated, and you know it. My voice cracked louder than I intended. I had the county surveyor verify it. There's no easement. You're trespassing. Her smile widened, predatory. Then call the police. I'll wait. She pulled out her phone, fingers hovering over the screen. While they're coming, I'll also report your harassment of an HOA board member, the cameras you installed without permission, the sprinkler system modifications that violate community standards. Should I continue? Those cameras are on my property, visible from public spaces. That's a violation. She tapped her clipboard. I've documented 17 separate code infractions on your property, Mr. Caldwell. Each one carries a $500 fine. That's $8,500 you owe this community. Bullshit. I stepped off the porch, fists clenched. You can't just make up fines because I won't let you use my lawn as a shortcut. I'm not making anything up. Her voice dropped to ice. I'm enforcing the rules. Rules you agreed to when you moved here. Rules that keep this community beautiful and functional. She stepped closer, heels punching into my grass with deliberate force. Now, you can either cooperate like a reasonable neighbor, or I can make your life here so miserable you'll be begging to sell. Is that a threat? It's a promise. She turned, walking across my lawn with theatrical slowness, her dog trotting beside her. Halfway across, she stopped and looked back. Oh, and Richard? Your roses are overhanging the sidewalk by 2 inches. That's another violation. Expect the notice this afternoon. I watched her cross my entire lawn, the lawn I'd spent 6 months and $4,000 restoring, like she owned it, like she owned me. That's when I knew. This wasn't about rules or easements or community standards. This was war. And Vanessa Monroe had just made the fatal mistake of assuming I'd surrender. 6 months earlier, I'd moved into Riverside Estates for exactly one reason: peace. After a quarter-century designing irrigation systems for commercial agriculture endless deadlines, temperamental clients, water rights disputes that made divorce lawyers look civil, I was done, finished, ready to trade conference rooms for gardening gloves and spreadsheets for soil pH tests. But the real reason I left wasn't burnout. It was grief. My wife Linda had died 2 years earlier, and I still hadn't figured out how to live in a world without her. Cancer took her in 8 months diagnosis to funeral, the kind of timeline that doesn't give you room to process, only survive. One day she was complaining about back pain. 6 weeks later, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 4 months after that, hospice. 2 months more, and I was choosing between mahogany and oak for her casket. The house we'd shared in Pasadena, 32 years of memories pressed into 2,400 square feet, became unbearable. Her coffee mug still sat in the cabinet, her gardening gloves hung by the back door. Her handwriting covered half the calendar on the fridge, appointments for a future that would never happen. I lasted 18 months there, wandering through rooms that echoed with her absence. Then, one morning, I woke up and realized I had a choice: stay and slowly fossilize into a monument to grief, or leave and try to remember what being alive felt like. So I sold it. Every piece of furniture we picked out together, every painting she'd loved, every goddamn thing that reminded me I was alone. Kept 3 boxes: her favorite books, some photos, and the gardening journal she'd kept for 20 years, handwritten notes about what to plant when, which roses liked afternoon shade, how to winterize perennials. I took the money, took early retirement from the firm, and started looking for somewhere I could disappear into normalcy. Riverside Estates appeared on a realtor website at 2 a.m. during one of those nights when sleep felt like a foreign country I'd been deported from. The listing was nothing special: modest ranch house, good bones, needs cosmetic work, but the photos showed something that stopped my scrolling. A backyard with space for a garden. A front lawn that, despite being neglected and drought damaged, had potential. Linda had loved gardens. Not the perfectly manicured golf course aesthetic that screamed "we hired professionals," but real gardens, messy, alive, chaotic with color and purpose. She'd spent weekends on her knees in dirt, planting things and talking to them like they could hear her, and somehow they always grew better for her than for anyone else. Looking at that listing, I realized something. I didn't know how to bring her back, but maybe I could bring back the things she loved. Maybe working soil and growing things would feel like a conversation with her memory instead of a monument to her absence. I bought the house 3 weeks later, sight unseen beyond the photos, paid cash, closed escrow remotely, drove down from Pasadena with everything I owned in a U-Haul trailer, my daughter Jessica's angry texts still unanswered on my phone. She'd been furious when I told her I was selling the house. "That's Mom's house, Dad. That's where we grew up. You can't just erase her." "I'm not erasing her," I'd said. "I'm trying to survive her. By running away? By finding somewhere I can remember her without drowning." She'd hung up. That was 14 months ago. We'd exchanged maybe 3 texts since her birthday. Christmas, one awkward, "hope you're okay," that I'd answered with, "I'm fine, because what else do you say?" The house itself was exactly what I needed. Empty, neutral, no ghosts except the ones I brought with me. The previous owner had been a motorcycle enthusiast who'd apparently spent more time in the garage than anywhere else. The interior was dated but functional: beige carpet, white walls, kitchen from 1995 that still had the original appliances. But that lawn? God, that lawn was a disaster. California's 5-year drought had murdered it. What grass remained was brown and brittle, crunching underfoot like burned paper. Bare patches showed cracked soil underneath, earth so dry it had pulled away from itself in jagged fissures. Crabgrass and spurge had moved in like squatters, claiming territory the original fescue had abandoned. The previous owner had given up. Understandable during the worst drought years, watering lawns was practically illegal, rationing enforced with steep fines. Why fight nature when nature had already won? But looking at that dead lawn, I saw something else. A problem I could solve. An engineering challenge with clear parameters: water, soil, seed, time. Variables I could control. More than that, I saw Linda's hands in dirt, her voice explaining why you had to prepare soil before planting, why shortcuts always showed up later as failures. I spent the first month just studying the space, walked it daily, noting sun patterns and drainage issues. The lawn sloped slightly toward the street, good for runoff, bad for water retention. Soil composition was dense clay underneath 6 inches of degraded topsoil. The existing irrigation system was a joke. Half the sprinkler heads were broken, pipes cracked from years of thermal expansion and contraction. I made plans, drew diagrams, calculated water requirements and evapotranspiration rates, chose a grass blend that could survive California heat without constant watering. Tall fescue for its deep roots and drought tolerance, buffalo grass for its ability to go dormant and recover. Then I started the real work, rototilling the entire lawn, breaking up that clay layer, removing rocks and debris, mixing in 3 cubic yards of compost, turning dead soil into something that could sustain life, installing a completely new irrigation system, not the cheap residential stuff, but commercial-grade components I'd used in agricultural projects, smart controllers that adjusted watering based on weather forecasts, pressure-compensating sprinkler heads for even coverage, drip lines for the perimeter plants. It was back-breaking work. I was 57 years old, not 25. My back complained. My knees protested. My hands developed calluses that cracked and bled. But every shovel of dirt felt like meditation. Every pipe fitted correctly felt like proof I could still build something. Every evening, when I stood back and looked at the day's progress, I felt less like a man waiting to die and more like someone who might have a reason to wake up tomorrow. Tom from next door wandered over one afternoon during week 3, 2 beers in hand. He was retired SDPD, Vietnam vet, the kind of guy who'd seen enough of life's darkness to appreciate its simple pleasures. "You're really going all in on this lawn thing?" he observed, watching me dig trenches for irrigation lines. "Gives me something to do," I replied. "Could think of easier hobbies. Golf, fishing, day drinking." I smiled. "Tried those, didn't take." He was quiet for a moment then. "Lost my wife 6 years ago. Different kind of cancer, same bullshit ending. Spent 2 years after wondering why I was still breathing when she wasn't." I stopped digging, looked at him. "Know what got me through?" Tom continued. "Realizing grief isn't something you get over. It's something you grow around. Like a tree growing around a fence post. The post doesn't disappear, it becomes part of the tree. This lawn is my fence post," I said quietly. "Then build the hell out of it." He raised his beer. "To dead grass and second chances." We drank in silence, watching the sun set over partially excavated dirt. By month 4, the grass was seeded. I watered it religiously early morning and evening, keeping the soil consistently moist without oversaturating. Watched for germination like a parent watching for a baby's first steps. When the first green shoots appeared, I felt something crack in my chest. Not grief that was always there, but hope. Small, tentative, fragile, as those new blades pushing through soil. Linda would have loved this. Not just the grass itself, but the process, the patience of it. The faith that, if you do the work right, life finds a way. By month 6, I had a lawn. Not perfect, there were thin spots, areas where germination had been spotty, but real, green, alive, growing stronger every week. I installed landscape lighting so I could see it at night. Planted Linda's favorite roses along the border, hybrid teas in coral and yellow. Set up a small memorial corner with a bench and her gardening journal in a weatherproof box. Sat there most evenings, talking to her about the day, the grass, the neighbors, the quiet, simple progress of healing at the speed of growth. And for the first time since she died, I felt like I was living somewhere instead of just existing in a space. That's when Vanessa Monroe entered my life and proved that peace, like grass, is something you have to defend if you want to keep it. The first footprint appeared on a Tuesday morning, single heel print, right in the center of my lawn. I noticed it while watering the roses Linda had loved. I'd planted a memorial bed near the mailbox, hybrid teas in her favorite colors. One footprint. Could have been anyone. Mail carrier, delivery driver, neighbor, cutting across at night. I fixed the divot and forgot about it. Wednesday, 3 more prints. A diagonal path from the sidewalk toward the corner property. Thursday, a clear trail, like someone had started using my lawn as a shortcut. Friday morning, I was filling the bird feeder when I saw her. Vanessa Monroe, walking across my grass with the casual entitlement of someone who'd never been told no. She wore business casual that day, slacks, blouse, sensible flats, but carried herself like royalty, inspecting the peasants' fields. Her dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, according to the collar I'd glimpse later, trotted beside her. I watched her cross my entire lawn diagonally, stepping onto the sidewalk on the far side without a single glance back. The next morning, same thing. 7:30 a.m., like clockwork. Cut across my lawn, her dog occasionally stopping to mark territory on my carefully chosen landscaping rocks. Monday, I was waiting for her. "Morning," I called out as she approached. She stopped, sunglasses down, expression carefully neutral. "Good morning." "Richard Caldwell. I live here." "Oh!" Her smile was pure theater. "Vanessa Monroe, HOA president. Welcome to Riverside Estates." "Thanks. Listen, I noticed you've been cutting across my lawn. Would you mind using the sidewalk instead?" Her smile never wavered. Actually, there's a pedestrian easement through here. Check your property plat, you'll see the community access zone includes this section. I did check, I said evenly. The easement ends at the sidewalk. This is private property. Perhaps you're looking at an outdated map. She pulled out her phone, swiped through something. The HOA updated boundaries last year for walkability improvements. Very popular with residents. Can I see that? She held the phone up too far for me to actually read. Feel free to request official documentation at our next board meeting. Third Tuesday of the month. Her smile sharpened. Until then, I'll continue my morning constitutional. Doctor's orders 10,000 steps daily. And she walked right past me across my lawn, heels punching into the soft grass I'd spent half a year cultivating. That's when I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a test. And I just failed by being reasonable. Tom came over that evening, saw my face. She hit you with the easement lie, didn't she? You knew? She tried it on the Hoffmans 2 years ago. Wanted to cut through their backyard to reach the community pool faster, made up some bullshit about shared access. They fought her for 6 months before giving up. What happened? They moved. Tom opened his beer. Vanessa doesn't lose. She just makes it too expensive to win. I stared at my lawn, already showing signs of her daily crossings, grass flattening into a visible path, soil compacting underneath. There has to be a legal way to stop her, I said. Sure. Lawyers, hearings, HOA, disputes that cost thousands. Most people can't afford that fight. He looked at me carefully. You thinking of trying? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that if she wants to walk on my property without permission, maybe I should make that walk a little less comfortable. Tom grinned. Now you're talking my language? That night, I pulled up the sprinkler system controls on my laptop. Smart system. Wi-Fi enabled, with motion sensors I'd installed for water conservation detecting movement to avoid spraying pedestrians on the sidewalk. I smiled at the screen, fingers hovering over the settings menu. If Vanessa wanted to use my lawn as her personal shortcut, she was about to learn that trespassing had consequences. Wet, humiliating consequences. The plan took 3 days to implement properly. I wasn't going to half-ass this. 25 years of engineering had taught me one fundamental truth. If you're going to solve a problem, solve it completely. No shortcuts, no rushed work, no hoping for the best. Design it right, build it right, test it right. First step, mapping Vanessa's exact route with the precision of a surveyor. I set up my laptop on the porch each morning at 7:15 a.m., camera feeds open, noting her pattern. She was remarkably consistent, arrived at my lawn between 7:28 and 7:32, always took the same diagonal path from the sidewalk near my mailbox to the corner property line. Walked at approximately 3.2 feet per second. Spent an average of 11.4 seconds crossing my property. Creatures of habit make the easiest targets. I sketched her route on graph paper, marking her footfalls like tracking an animal migration, drew concentric circles showing sprinkler coverage areas, calculated water pressure requirements for maximum effect without causing actual harm. I wanted her soaked and humiliated, not injured. There's a fine line between justice and liability. Second step, recalibrating the motion sensors. The existing system had 12 zones, each controlled by commercial-grade sensors I'd installed for water conservation. California regulations practically required them. Normally, the sensors detected movement and paused the sprinklers to avoid wasting water on pedestrians. But these weren't cheap residential sensors. These were Toro HydroSense units, the same ones I'd used in agricultural projects where you needed to keep wildlife from destroying crops. They had a secondary mode, rarely used in residential applications, motion activation. Instead of stopping the water when something moved, they started it. I enabled predator deterrence mode across all 12 zones. Then I fine-tuned the sensitivity. Too sensitive, and every cat or squirrel would trigger false alarms. Not sensitive enough, and Vanessa might slip through. I calibrated the weight threshold to 25 pounds, heavy enough to ignore small animals, light enough to catch a golden retriever, and I set the thermal signature detection to human body temperature, creating a two-factor authentication system. Weight plus heat signature equals target acquired. The programming took 6 hours, most of it spent testing with Tom's help. He walked the route while I monitored from inside, adjusting settings until the activation was instant and unavoidable. "You're building a weapon," Tom observed during a break. "I'm building a lesson," I corrected. "There's a difference. Tell that to the judge if she sues. She won't." Because to sue, she'd have to admit she was trespassing. Third step, upgrading the sprinkler heads themselves. The original residential units were designed for gentle, even watering fine for grass, insufficient for my purposes. I needed commercial-grade impact. I called my old supplier, a guy named Ray, who ran an irrigation equipment distributor in Riverside. We'd worked together for 20 years, dozens of projects, the kind of business relationship built on trust and understanding what questions not to ask. "Ray," I said when he answered, "I need 12 Hunter I-40 rotor heads, industrial spec." Pause. "You building a golf course in your backyard, Rich?" "Something like that. Those units throw water 40 feet at 80 psi. That's serious pressure for a residential lawn." "I'm aware." Another pause. "You having a problem with someone?" "Let's just say I'm discouraging unwanted foot traffic." Ray laughed. "Say no more. I'll have them delivered tomorrow. Cash only. Off the books. Never had this conversation. Appreciated." The new sprinkler heads arrived Tuesday morning. I spent that afternoon digging up the old units and installing the replacement's precision work, making sure each head was perfectly level, aimed at the exact angle for optimal coverage overlap. The I-40 were beasts, cast iron bodies, stainless steel springs, designed to operate in commercial settings where failure meant crop loss and lawsuits. Each head could throw water in a 360-degree pattern with enough force to sting bare skin at 10 feet. Arranged correctly, they created an overlapping grid where nothing could pass through without getting drenched from multiple directions simultaneously. I tested the system at midnight, Tom watching from his porch with a beer and a grin. The sprinklers roared to life, water arcing through the darkness like liquid sculptures, mist catching the streetlights and creating rainbow halos. "Jesus Christ," Tom muttered. "That's not irrigation, that's a fire suppression system. Effective, though." "Oh yeah. Vanessa walks through that. She's gonna need scuba gear." I watched the water pattern, timing the cycles. Each zone triggered sequentially, creating a rolling wave that would track movement across the lawn. 12 seconds of coverage, exactly matching Vanessa's crossing time. No escape routes, no dry paths, just guaranteed saturation. Perfect. Final step, documentation. I installed a high-definition security camera on the garage eave angle, calculated to capture the entire lawn in 4K resolution. Motion-activated, infrared night vision, weatherproof housing, the kind of camera that doesn't miss anything. But I didn't stop there. I also mounted a microphone legally installed on my own property, pointed at my own lawn to capture audio. Vanessa's inevitable screaming would be part of the evidence file. Then, I programmed everything into a smart hub I could monitor from my phone. Real-time alerts when the motion sensors triggered. Live video feed. The ability to override the system if, say, a mail carrier accidentally wandered onto my grass. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. That night, I sat on my porch reviewing the setup one final time. Every component checked, double-checked, tested. The system was ready. All I needed was the target. Tom came over around 9 p.m., carrying his usual evening beer offering. "You really think she'll keep coming after all the warnings?" "I know she will," I said. "People like Vanessa don't stop until they're forced to. Authority is like a drug for them. The more they get away with, the more they need. And tomorrow morning, she gets cut off cold turkey." In a manner of speaking, I raised my beer. "To boundaries, to high-pressure consequences," Tom corrected, clinking bottles. I slept well that night, not because I felt victorious the battle hadn't even started, but because I'd done the work properly. Whatever happened tomorrow would be the result of good engineering meeting justified consequences. At 6:45 a.m., I was already awake, coffee brewing, laptop open on the porch. The camera feeds showed my lawn in the gray early light, grass glistening with morning dew, sprinkler heads sitting innocently at ground level like sleeping dragons. I settled into my chair, coffee in hand. 7:23. Phone pinged with a motion alert from the street. I switched to that camera. White Mercedes, pulling away from Vanessa's house, heading toward the community park for her morning constitutional. 7:26. She appeared at the top of my street, walking at her usual brisk pace. Biscuit trotted beside her, tail wagging. She wore white that morning, designer athletic wear, expensive sunglasses, those ridiculous heels that had no business on a morning walk but made a statement about who was important. 7:28. She reached my property line, paused, looked directly at my camera, smiled, and stepped onto my grass. The sprinklers exploded to life like a coordinated ambush. 12 zones firing simultaneously, water pressure at maximum, impact heads throwing jets in crossing patterns that created a vertical wall of water. The sound was immediate and violent, not the gentle psh of residential sprinklers, but the aggressive chhhhh of industrial irrigation. Vanessa walked straight into it. The first jets hit her chest high, spinning her slightly. The second wave caught her from the sides, soaking her instantly from multiple angles. The third set activated as she tried to retreat, cutting off her escape route. She shrieked a genuine startled scream that started high and broke into cursing. Her sunglasses flew off her face, spinning through the air and landing in a puddle. Her designer outfit turned from white to transparent in under 2 seconds. Her hair, usually perfect, plastered to her skull like wet seaweed. Biscuit panicked, pulling at the leash and barking frantically, wrapping the line around Vanessa's legs 3 times in his terror. She tried to move forward, got hit by another wave, tried to back up, another zone activated, tracking her movement, tried to cut left, the system predicted it, water waiting. She slipped on the wet grass, caught herself on my decorative border rocks, slipped again and went down hard on one knee. Richard Caldwell. The scream was pure rage, voice cracking with outrage and disbelief. "You bastard!" I raised my coffee mug in a silent toast, watching from the safety and legal protection of my own porch. She struggled to her feet, completely drenched, makeup running in black streams down her cheeks. Her white outfit clung to her like wet tissue paper. Her heels were caked in mud. Biscuit had tangled himself so thoroughly she had to stop and manually unwind the leash before she could move. "You'll pay for this," she shrieked, pointing at me with a shaking hand. "This is assault. Have a wonderful day," I called back cheerfully. The sprinklers continued their relentless assault until she finally made it to the sidewalk, leaving a trail of water like a defeated sea creature returning to the ocean. I replayed the footage 3 times. It got funnier each viewing. The golden morning light catching the water spray, the perfect timing of each zone activation, the look of absolute disbelief on Vanessa's face as she realized what was happening. But the best part, the part I'd replay for years, was the moment she looked straight at the camera after escaping mascara-streaked and furious, and pointed at me with such venomous rage that I actually laughed out loud. Tom texted 10 minutes later, "Heard the screaming from inside my house with windows closed. Please tell me you got video." I sent him the clip. His response came immediately. "I'm printing this on canvas and hanging it in my living room." By 8:30 a.m., my phone started ringing. HOA president, the caller ID read. I let it go to voicemail, savoring my coffee while listening to Vanessa's message. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Vanessa Monroe. Your sprinkler stunt this morning was a deliberate, targeted attack and constitutes harassment and assault of an HOA board member. I'm filing formal complaints with the board and the sheriff's office. You can also expect a lawsuit for emotional distress and property damage. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. You'll be hearing from our legal counsel by end of business today." I deleted it and went back to admiring my perfectly watered lawn. Justice, I thought, looked a lot like a well-designed irrigation system. That evening, Tom came over with a six-pack and a grin. Whole neighborhood's talking about it. Karen from down the street said she heard Vanessa on her porch this morning ranting about assault and calling her lawyers. Let her call, I said. She's trespassing. I'm protecting my property. Oh, I agree. But you know she's not going to let this go. Neither am I. The next morning, I received the formal notice, printed on official HOA letterhead, stamped and signed. Violation notice. Installation of unauthorized security devices, sprinkler system modifications without HOA architectural approval. Fine. $500. Payment due within 30 days. I read it twice, then laughed out loud. She was fining me for having sprinklers on my own lawn. The audacity was almost admirable. I drafted a response that same afternoon. Dear Mrs. Monroe, I am in receipt of your violation notice dated date. I respectfully decline to pay this fine for the following reasons. The sprinkler system in question is on private property and is not subject to HOA architectural approval. Said system is an irrigation device, not a security device, and is used for its intended purpose, watering my lawn. If the system occasionally activates due to motion detection during its normal operation cycle, that is simply an unfortunate consequence of trespassing on private property. I remind you that despite multiple polite requests, you continue to cross my lawn daily without permission. I have documented evidence of this trespassing dating back 3 weeks. Should you wish to continue this dispute, I am prepared to involve legal counsel and local law enforcement. Respectfully, Richard Caldwell. I mailed it certified. Return receipt requested. 2 days later, I got the receipt. Vanessa Monroe had signed for it. That same evening, I got another notice, this one hand-delivered by Mark Chen, the HOA vice president. He looked uncomfortable standing on my porch. Richard, I need to talk to you about this situation with Vanessa. Come in, I said. Mark was mid-50s, accountant, painfully neutral in every HOA meeting I'd watched on YouTube. He sat stiffly on my couch, envelope in hands. Look, he said quietly, between you and me, Vanessa's out of line. That easement thing is bullshit. There's no community access path through your property. Then why the notice? Because she's president. And she's persistent. He handed me the envelope. This is from the full board. Emergency session last night. I opened it. Notice of HOA board. Hearing. The Board of Directors of Riverside Estates HOA will convene a special hearing to address ongoing property disputes between Mr. Radius, Richard Caldwell, and HOA President Vanessa Monroe, all parties required to attend. Date, time. What is this? I asked. It's her trying to formalize control, Mark said. She wants the board to officially designate your lawn as community access. She's got 3 of the 5 board members in her pocket. They'll vote however she tells them. So I'm going to lose, unless you make a hell of a case. Or, unless. He hesitated. Look, a lot of residents are tired of Vanessa. She's been power tripping for 2 years. Fines for mailbox colors, enforcement of rules that don't exist, making people's lives miserable because she can. You're not the first person she's targeted. You're just the first one who's fought back publicly. What are you saying? I'm saying bring evidence to that hearing. Bring witnesses. Make this about more than just your lawn. He stood to leave. And Richard? Off the record? I hope you destroy her. After he left, I sat on my porch thinking about what came next. This wasn't just about property lines anymore. This was about a woman who'd turned community governance into personal tyranny, and a neighborhood too afraid or too tired to stop her. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. If Vanessa wanted a hearing, I'd give her one she'd never forget. The HOA hearing was scheduled for a Thursday evening, 7 p.m. at the community clubhouse. I spent the week preparing like I was defending a dissertation. Documentation, exhibits, evidence, everything organized, time-stamped, backed up in triplicate. Tom helped me canvass the neighborhood. We went door to door quietly, asking one simple question. Has Vanessa Monroe ever done something as HOA president that felt unfair or arbitrary? The responses were stunning. 83 households, 62 had stories. Fines for grass, half an inch too tall. Violations for garden gnomes being non-conforming decorative elements. One elderly woman had been fined $300 for having a blue front door. Color palette violations. A young couple got placed slapped with fees for parking their work van in their own driveway, commercial vehicles prohibited. The pattern was clear. Vanessa used the HOA rulebook like a weapon, enforcing selectively and arbitrarily to maintain power through fear. I documented every story, collected photos of the violations, copies of the fine notices, timestamps showing the violations had preceded any actual rule changes, built a case that showed systematic abuse. The evening of the hearing, I arrived 30 minutes early with Tom and Linda's sister, Marie. She'd flown in from Phoenix when I'd called, wanting to see the woman who's terrorizing my baby brother. The clubhouse was packed, way more than usual attendance. Word had spread. People who'd been fined, harassed, or intimidated were showing up, curious what would happen when someone finally stood up to Vanessa. Vanessa herself arrived exactly at 7 p.m., flanked by her 3 board allies, Patricia Wu, treasurer, David Kovac, secretary, and Margaret Hampton, member-at-large. They took their seats at the front table like judges ascending the bench. Mark Chen sat at the end, separate expression carefully neutral. Vanessa called the meeting to order, voice crisp and authoritative. This emergency session has been called to address behavioral issues from Mr. Richard Caldwell, resident of 2847 Oakmont Drive. Mr. Caldwell has repeatedly violated community standards through installation of unauthorized security devices and harassment of HOA leadership. Several people in the crowd muttered. Vanessa continued, furthermore, his refusal to recognize established pedestrian easements demonstrates a pattern of non-cooperation with community governance. The board will hear statements from both parties, then vote on appropriate remediation. May I present my case? I asked, standing. You'll have 5 minutes, Vanessa said coldly. I pulled out my laptop, connected it to the room's projector. I'll need 10. 5. Then I'll talk fast. The first image flashed on screen, the property plat map. This is the official survey from Riverside County, dated 2019, showing my property boundaries. As you can see, there is 0 community easement on my lot. The easement Mrs. Sue Monroe referenced does not exist, Vanessa started to interrupt. I kept going. Second image. Security camera footage showing Mrs. Monroe crossing my property without permission on 17 consecutive days. Each crossing caused visible damage to my lawn, which I spent 6 months and over $4,000 restoring. The footage played. Same diagonal path, day after day. Some people in the audience gasped. Others nodded. They'd seen her do the same thing elsewhere. Third, my written request to Mrs. Monroe to stop trespassing, sent via certified mail. She received it and ignored it. Fourth, the irrigation system misses. Monroe claims is an unauthorized security device. It's a standard commercial sprinkler system with motion sensors technology that's been standard in California for a decade due to water conservation. Requirements. The system activated when Mrs. Monroe trespassed because that's what motion-activated sprinklers do. Vanessa's face was bright red. You deliberately, fifth, I continued, voice rising slightly, a pattern of selective enforcement and arbitrary fines that Mrs. Monroe has used to harass residents who question her authority. I clicked to the next slide. A chart showing 62 documented cases of questionable violations, each with photos and fine notices. The room went completely silent. Mrs. Monroe has used her position to fine residents for grass height variations of less than 1-inch mailbox, colors not listed in the original CC and R's garden decorations. She personally disliked parking vehicles in their own driveways, having children's toys visible from the Each bullet point got murmurs from the audience. Several people were nodding vigorously. This isn't about my sprinklers. This is about a pattern of abuse. Mrs. Monroe believes she can ignore property rights, manufacture fake easements, and use HOA authority to punish anyone who disagrees with her. I turned to face her directly. Well, I disagree. And unlike the previous residents you've bullied into silence, I'm not moving. I'm not paying fake fines. And I'm not going to let you turn this community into your personal fiefdom. The room erupted in applause. Vanessa shot to her feet. This is completely out of order. Mr. Caldwell is manipulating. Motion to remove Vanessa Monroe as HOA president. Someone shouted from the back. Second, came another voice. Mark Chen stood up slowly. The motion has been made and seconded. Per HOA bylaws, we must vote. Vanessa's face went from red to white. You can't. This isn't all in favor of removing Vanessa Monroe as president and calling for new elections? Mark said. Hands shot up across the room. Dozens of them. Opposed? Patricia, David, and Margaret raised their hands barely. They looked uncomfortable, like they'd just realized their ship was sinking. Motion carries, Mark said. Mrs. Monroe, you're removed from the board effective immediately. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Vanessa grabbed her purse and stood, face twisted with fury and humiliation. This is illegal, she hissed. I'll sue every single one of you. For what? I asked calmly. Following HOA bylaws? She had no answer. Just turned and walked out, heels clicking one final time across the community clubhouse floor. The doors slammed behind her. The room exploded into conversation, relief, and laughter. People were hugging, high-fiving, celebrating like a dictator had just been deposed. Because, in a way, she had. Tom clapped me on the back. Hell of a presentation. Marie squeezed my arm. Linda would have loved this. I thought about that. Linda, who'd spent her whole life standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, who taught middle school for 30 years, protecting kids from bullies, big and small. Yeah, she would have loved this. But as I packed up my laptop, I realized something. This wasn't over. Vanessa Monroe didn't strike me as someone who'd accept defeat gracefully, and I was right. The retaliation started 3 days after the hearing. I came home from grocery shopping to find my mailbox shattered, not just knocked over, but smashed into pieces with what looked like a baseball bat. The mail inside was scattered across the lawn, trampled into mud. I called the police. They took a report, said they'd look into it, which is cop speak, for this is too minor for us to actually investigate. The next morning, my sprinklers wouldn't turn on. I checked the system and found the main valve had been shut off manually from the access box that should have been locked. Someone had cut the lock. Tom came over when he saw me examining the damage. Vanessa? Who else? You call the cops again? For vandalism with no proof? They'll just add it to the report and do nothing. That afternoon, I got a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of, Whitmore, Sanchez, and Associates. The law office representing Vanessa Monroe in her defamation and harassment lawsuit against me. I read the letter twice, feeling ice settle in my stomach. She was suing me for $50,000, claiming the hearing had destroyed her reputation and caused severe emotional distress. The filing included demands for public apology, removal of all video evidence from my personal devices, payment for therapy necessitated by ongoing trauma, compensation for loss of standing in the community. It was bullshit, obviously, but expensive bullshit. Defending myself would cost thousands in legal fees, even if I won. Tom read the letter over my shoulder. She's trying to bankrupt you. Classic abuser move. I said, can't win legitimately, so make the fight too expensive to maintain. What are you going to do? I stared at the letter, thinking. Then I smiled slowly. I'm going to make her wish she'd never crossed my lawn. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called my daughter Jessica, who lived in Seattle. We'd been estranged for 2 years, long story involving her husband, some bad investments, and words said in anger that neither of us knew how to take back. Dad? She answered on the fourth ring, voice cautious. Hey, Jess. Silence. Then, is everything okay? Define okay, I said. I'm being sued by my HOA president for spraying her with sprinklers. I heard her laugh short, surprised. What? I explained everything. The trespassing, the sprinklers, the hearing, the retaliation. She listened without interrupting, and I realized how much I'd missed just talking to her. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Dad, you know what you need? What's that? A PR campaign. You turned this woman into the villain at that HOA meeting. Now she's trying to flip the script and make you the bad guy. You need to control the narrative before she does. I'm not good at that kind of thing. No, but I am. That's literally my job. Jessica worked in crisis communications for a tech company, handling PR disasters and reputation management. Send me everything, video, documentation, the lawsuit. I'll help you tell this story the right way. Jess, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Besides, her voice got softer. I miss you, Dad. Let me help. Something cracked in my chest. I miss you too, kiddo. Over the next week, Jessica worked her magic with strategic precision. She helped me create a professional documentation site, riversideestatestoruth.com, with chronological timeline, security footage, property surveys, and the fake easement map Vanessa had fabricated. Every claim backed by evidence. Then she crafted the narrative, grieving widower restores lawn for healing, HOA president trespasses repeatedly, homeowner protects property with legal technology, president retaliates with frivolous lawsuit. Simple, sympathetic, undeniable. She sent targeted pitches to local investigative reporters, regional news outlets, and online forums like Reddit's r/Fuck HOA. Channel 7 San Diego picked it up within 48 hours. The reporter, Amanda Chen, came to my house with a cameraman. Professional, thorough, asking smart questions. I showed her everything: footage, documents, property surveys. She even walked through the sprinklers herself, laughing as the water hit her. "This isn't dangerous," she said. "Just very, very wet." The segment aired Thursday evening. 6 minutes of devastating journalism. My story. The trespassing footage. The sprinkler incident in glorious slow motion. The lawsuit paperwork, expert testimony from a property rights attorney confirming everything I did was legal. The kicker, Amanda standing in front of my house saying, "We reached out to Vanessa Monroe for comment. She declined." Cut to freeze frame of Vanessa mid-scream, water spraying everywhere. By 10 p.m., the station's website had crashed from traffic. By Friday morning, it was everywhere. LA Times. San Diego HOA drama shows Dangers of Unchecked Authority ABC7 statewide pickup Reddit post got 47,000 upvotes in 6 hours. Someone created a meme. Vanessa screaming with caption, "When you find out property lines are real." Another, "Me holding coffee with peace was never an option." By Friday evening, 2.3 million views across platforms. Jessica called, barely containing excitement. "Dad, you're viral. Vanessa's lawsuit is dead. No attorney will touch this now." National outlets picked it up for, and finally, segments, CBS Sunday Morning, NPR Weekend Edition, USA Today, op-ed about HOA overreach. The story had transcended my lawn. It became a symbol for everyone bullied by HOA boards. Vanessa's lawyers withdrew the suit Tuesday. One-line notice. Plaintiff withdraws all claims with prejudice. It was over. Tom brought champagne over that evening. "You did it. You actually did it. Jessica did it." I corrected. "I just documented the evidence. Either way, Vanessa's done. I heard she's moving." Moving? Put her house up for sale yesterday. Can't show her face around here anymore. I should have felt triumphant, but mostly I just felt tired. That night, I called Jessica again. "Thank you for everything." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did this matter so much?" "It's just a lawn." I looked out the window at the grass, green and healthy under the landscape lighting. Your mom planted roses here. After she died, I let everything die with her. The lawn, the garden, part of myself. Bringing this lawn back to life was like I don't know. Like proving I could still grow things. Still build something worth protecting. And Vanessa was trying to take that away. Yeah. Then I'm glad we fought back, Jessica said. Mom would be proud. She'd be proud of you too. The way you helped me tell this story, that was genius. Thanks, Dad. She paused. Maybe I could visit? See this famous lawn in person? I'd like that. Next month? Perfect. After we hung up, I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sprinklers cycle through their evening routine. Precise, efficient, beautiful. Tom wandered over, his own beer in hand. Heard you talking to your daughter. Yeah, she's coming to visit. That's good, Rich. Real good. He clinked his bottle against mine. You know, when you moved in, I thought you were just some burned-out engineer looking for a quiet place to fade out. But you're tougher than you look. I'm not tough. I'm just too stubborn to quit. Same thing, brother. Same thing. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the light fade over the neighborhood. Somewhere down the street, kids were laughing. A dog barked. Life continuing in that mundane, beautiful way it does when people aren't too afraid to live it. The next morning, I found a letter in my mailbox, not from Vanessa, but from Mark Chen, now serving as interim HOA president. Dear Richard, on behalf of the Riverside Estates Board of Directors, I want to apologize for the treatment you received from our previous president. Her actions did not reflect the values this community was founded on. We've conducted a review of HOA enforcement actions over the past 3 years and found numerous violations of our own bylaws. We're rescinding $47,000 in wrongful fines across 38 households and implementing new governance procedures to prevent future abuse. We'd also like to invite you to join the board. We need people who understand property rights and aren't afraid to defend them. Thank you for standing up when others couldn't. Respectfully, Mark Chen, Interim President. I read it twice, then called Tom. They want me on the HOA board, he laughed. Of course they do. You're a hero now. I'm not a hero. I just didn't want someone walking on my lawn. And that, Tom said, is exactly why you should do it, because you actually understand what property rights mean. I thought about it. Thought about Linda, who'd spent her career fighting small battles for kids nobody else noticed. Thought about Jessica, who'd helped me tell this story because it mattered. All right, I finally said. I'll do it. Good man. That spring, Riverside Estates held new elections. I ran for a board seat, basically unopposed. My platform was simple. Reasonable rules, reasonably enforced. We rewrote the CC and Rs, eliminating arbitrary restrictions and establishing clear appeal processes. We brought transparency to HOA finances, publishing budgets, and meeting minutes online. We turned a dictatorship into an actual community. Vanessa never came back. I heard she moved to Arizona, ironically to a neighborhood without an HOA. My lawn stayed perfect, no more trespassers, no more drama, just grass growing the way grass should. And every evening, when the sprinklers came on, I'd smile and think about the morning a woman in a red blazer learned the hardest lesson of her entitled life. Property lines exist for a reason. And sometimes, the best way to defend them is with water pressure and witnesses. Jessica visited that summer. We sat on the porch, drinking lemonade, watching the sprinklers. You know, she said, this whole thing made me realize something. What's that? Sometimes the smallest battles matter most. Not because they're big or dramatic, but because they're about standing up when it's easier to sit down. Your mother used to say that, I know. I finally understand what she meant. I looked at my daughter, at the lawn we were both seeing for the first time together, and felt something I hadn't felt since Linda died. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. The presence of people worth fighting for, and grass so green it hurt to look at. The end.